start off by addressing some of the questions in the AMA chat channel. If you have more questions, feel free to add them in the AMA chat channel or raise your hand with that little hand wave button down at the bottom. And that will allow you like up here on stage. And then you can ask questions from there. So we're going to start with the questions that are already written out. Nice try. I see that you've raised your hand, so I'll let you up in just a moment once we've addressed some of the questions in the chat. I'll do like basically up to through Mello's question, and then I'll let Try on, and then we'll continue with the questions in the AMA chat after that. So Sparky, yours are big, so I'll get right back to them first. Copavicious Jinping says, why did you make the Matic mint price so low? Well, actually, I mean, that's a conversation we've had with the Polygon team. We've also done a lot of market research around other projects on Polygon, and we think it's priced pretty well. It is a bit higher than the original Harmony price, but I don't think either higher or lower would do it justice. And yes, Taiwan is a country. Nothing against Chinese citizens, but the government of Taiwan is a government. Sorry. Okay, let's get to the actual questions. Tris says, what's the rationale behind the Matic price? Can you provide some context in terms of what competitors or other NFTs in the GameFi or gaming sphere are charging on Matic, and how you feel MC compares to them? Are you concerned that either the crash in Colony price or the wider market crash means that the price is somewhat too high right now? So not really, because I mean, the wider market crash kind of gets priced in to the price of Matic, which has been sinking. Obviously, there's less like bullish sentiment. Less people are willing to sort of just ape into things willy-nilly. But at the end of the day, like a successful Polygon launch doesn't even mean necessarily a full sellout, though we are expecting a full sellout because of the way we've organized with other organizations and like the Polygon team, basically, to make connections with different social impact guilds on that network and gaming guilds and a few others, which we'll explore sort of those in greater detail once we have the guild whitelist mint actually happening, so that they can essentially make themselves public. So generally, I would say I'll pass this one over to Eugene, but like in looking at other projects, for example, like Mars 4 could be considered a similar, I guess, space GameFi project, but with different sort of end goal visions and not really the same sort of timeline for longevity that they're looking at. And they're charging, I believe it was 0.1 or 0.2 ETH of their latest mint. So it's, and with a different NFT supply cap in the first place. So I think generally like the price is pretty well thought out and has been discussed with the Polygon team. But I can let Eugene step in here as well if you want to answer.
Yeah, I mean, basically I have the same point of view as you. Like we did a review of the prices. I mean, I wouldn't say it would compare us to Mars 4, but in general, like similar projects, similar like price levels, and we kind of like consider that there's like the market is going down, so we try to not make it too high, but also make it reasonable for us to, to enable like to kind of like positive fundraising efforts, and then like also scale the team, so kind of like also consider that aspect of the financing that we also need for the whole development that needs to be done. But it should be reasonable. It also was in line that our assumption was that in line with us to be able to, like the price to be not too high to be able to sell up NFTs also in a short period of time. So hopefully it will be quite similar to what we have with the Harmony, but let's see how it goes. And same thoughts as yours, Jude.
Cool. Yeah. Also very relaxing music at that coffee shop or wherever you are.
Well, apologies. Yes, I'm from coffee shop, so it's a bit late here. So I hope it's not really annoying.
You said it was a coffee shop with such like suspicious vigor. It almost made me believe it's not a coffee shop, and now I'm curious. But onto the. I believe you, but it's just funny. Question number 2, Tris asked, is it Tris? I hope I'm saying that correctly. Leading on from that, so what sort of runway does the mint provide, assuming it mints out fully? I remember reading that you manage to pay in stablecoins. So assuming you took the Matic at current price and immediately converted, to USDC, you'd have more than 4 million on the balance sheet. that must cover either a substantially growing team or a long runway. And actually, the answer is both. The answer is yes. So the way that the NFT mints work, so I kind of outlined this in a post, although it was a lot of text, and so I figure, if I can explain it here as well, maybe that'll help clarify for a bit. But essentially, the like Colony at a Glance post has a section on team members and funding, which this will probably also address Joeen's question, but we'll get to that later. There are like different pillars of project funding. The first one is NFT mints, so like the land mint. Avatars don't count because it's all burned, and like whatever royalty there is given to the artist. And so like you guys knew that on the Explorers, the Avatar mint for Harmony was 95% burned and then 5% given to the artists to reward them for their work. But land mints are handled differently, right? They're essentially what's considered like core team discretionary funding, which just means that there's no stipulations around how we have to spend it. As opposed to, for example, with the grants and the funding we get from VCs or from Harmony. So like the Harmony 50K grant had stipulations around both when we earned it and how we use it. Same thing with the 200, what was supposed to be 250,000, but due to calculation error, they ended up purchasing $237,000 worth of Colony. Either way, still great, but those funds also have stipulations around how they can be used. So like around hiring, salaries, and things like that. And then the Treasury is the third pillar of Colony funding, which is completely community governed, completely generated by the project and the platform itself. And it's currently funneled like through all of the Colony minted, a portion is added to the Treasury. But then in the future, you also have from the in-game marketplace or the DEX or anything like that, wherever we can implement fees that we decide as a community we don't want to burn, we can put those in the Treasury instead and try to maintain like the longevity of the Colony, even beyond the minting schedule. Like even if the minting schedule on one chain runs out, that chain can still have a growing Treasury, or at least a self-sustaining Treasury. So those are the three main pillars. So then let's look back at the NFT mints and sort of how that works. So basically for the land mints, what we mean by discretionary funding is just that it's not essentially governed by the community or by some sort of laws, like set of expectations around a contract that we've signed, right? And so a portion of that is used for each colony is like a big chunk of that is like put into liquidity for that colony. That happened on Harmony, that still happens, and it's going to happen on Polygon as well with the NFT mint. And then more of that project, because MarsColony is self-funded primarily, especially in this first stages. Basically, we transition away from self-funded when the Treasury becomes the primary payment mechanism for like salaries and expenses. We have gotten obviously VC funding, but like when salary expenses for 14 people, even on a team as small as ours, is like, upwards of 50,000 or more a month. Like the 287 doesn't actually get you that far at the end of the day. But so because it's self-funded, that's essentially how we use the majority of the money from the NFT mints. Is like it just gets funneled back into covering whatever costs that we don't want to start using the Treasury for right now. The reason we don't want to use the Treasury for it is because, one, if we start using it now, that's taking away, like while we have all the autonomy on like final decision making, that's taking away from the community's autonomy over their own funds. And then two, it's also would result in a dump of Colony token, and we don't want to do that. So that's another, I suppose, like reasoning behind doing the whitelist mint in Matic, aside from the fact that that's what Polygon obviously wants us to do because that benefits their chain for the initial mint, but it also means that when we sell it for stablecoins to use for salaries and other expenses, we don't tank Colony token, basically. While this won't be as much of a problem once we have like a bunch of burn mechanisms in place in the game and things that are replenishing the Treasury, that combines the ideal scenarios for transitioning to like the Treasury being the primary source of funding. But yeah, for right now, it's just basically team-controlled funds that we're using, and to be like completely direct and transparent, like as a sale of IP, like the mints can technically, we can give rewards to the team members, like bonuses and such. We're not historically a team that gives really, I mean, not to say we're stingy, but like we're not a team that really pays like exorbitant bonuses or anything. But we do like to reward like the devs that code the contract, the artists that create the different, either the different planet or the different avatars. And so it's basically just like, where do we need this money to go, and how is this going to help the project, and we can use it in those directions as like an overview generally. But it's pretty flexible. Eugene, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, did you have anything to add to that, Eugene, or is that pretty much?
Yeah, I do, but like, just can you hear me well? Because connection's a bit choppy here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so just, I mean, I wasn't able to hear you fully because I was out, but just to mention on the runway, yeah, so we definitely we considering like both the like just to add on top of it, both the like runway in terms of the the number of months we'll be able to like build the product, and also in terms of the team size. So for me, like when I was planning and when we were looking into Polygon, we were looking into 12 to 18 months runway, where plus scaling the team. So it depends upon the appetite, and if you're going to do additional fundraising, plus whether treasury financing, treasury can also be financing the team, then that'll be like depending upon the best that, or there'll be 12 or like months if you want to have a high appetite, or like 18 months if you want to have a lower appetite, and let's see them. But definitely those things are considered. Plus the team scale up, plus like we want to have a more like a permanent establishment in specific place for the whole team. So like I personally looking into having a game team in one location. So, and also having, as I mentioned earlier, a DeFi team that also works independently from each other. So those kind of things are all considered when we were doing the initial planning. Yeah, so those kind of things I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's a great point. I can't believe I forgot to touch on that. Yeah, but so it's the same thing. Like in that post about the colony overview with the team member and funding section, like there's a portion in that somewhere that describes like generally how the Polygon Mint funds are used, and Eugene basically summed it up. You can conceive of it as like game dev studio, like an actual full-fledged game dev studio that is in one place and doesn't have to be out of sync. HQ for us all to be in that one place and be more efficient, and then scaling the team members. I know we need more developers in addition to game dev. We need like for DeFi and things like that. And then also I'm hoping to grow the marketing side of things as well. So I mean, I think it's less of a priority than development. So we'll have to play that by ear, obviously, but that's also on the radar. Let's see. Are you able to provide some specifics on the hires that you're making? You've spoken about adding to the dev teams in terms of numbers, focuses, more biz dev operations. Yeah. So basically, like main focus is developers. Eugene mentioned, we want to not split, but like double the number of teams we have. One being fully focused on game features, game development, play dynamics, things like that. And they will work with like the artists on rendering and the game engines and things like that. So then we need chain developers who can manage the in-game marketplace, the decks, any updates to the decks that we need to do, maybe like the single-sided liquidity or any other like projects we want to take on. So that's mainly where the hires are. But then yeah, I do think like we've got a good deal of biz dev on the team right now. So I'm hoping that we can get some marketing up in here in the near future. Basically more of me. I mean, not obviously my personality. Hopefully, I think we have enough of that. Joeem says, he said, yeah. Go ahead, Eugene. Yeah.
No, just like the last thing to note here, just as for specific hires, I'm not sure if you have like, because we have some deck for investors. Let me see if there's any specifics on that. But yeah, you kind of listed here. But any more details, let us know. I may be able to kind of share more if you guys need.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so yeah, if there's not enough clarity, just feel free to reach out. And then also we have plenty more hires to make, so we'll need to be updating like the team page as that happens. Eugene, were you gonna jump in?
Oh, yep.
You muted yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like I that's what I mentioned, right? We do have like I meant the deck, the like investor deck, which has a which might have plans that we just mentioned. If you guys need more details, you should just check out that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so okay, I'll get to Joey's question. I do want to say, so Servicius is down here at the bottom saying, please express to Wooly that he doesn't need to feel anxious. First of all, I love that. Also, please know, guys, that in that last weekly update, I was mostly being like facetious. I'm not actually mad at anybody. It was more like the Big Brother disappointment, but I think it landed a little too harsh. But yeah, no, we love you guys, and we're still building. We just want you to know that like we're here and that's what we're doing, you know. And if you guys are worried about that, like let's talk about it. So, okay, but back to the questions. Joanne says, if you want to focus on poly, oh no, that's just a disclaimer. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Let's see. Didn't cover exactly what's happening with the land NFT royalties. I'd assume they're just used as a revenue stream to cover monthly expenses. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, like I said, like they are discretionary funding. Like we want the freedom to be basically like there's going to come a point where we're going to transition to using the treasury for development costs, and that's going to come when it becomes a sustainable thing to do, right? So like when we have burn mechanisms in place so that we can outpace any of the colony cells that requires to get bills paid. And then also when we have like mechanisms funneling more into the colony, into the treasury through like whatever transaction fees we implement or things like that. So none of those are profit mechanisms at all for the core team. It's just a way to maintain the project sustainably through its usage. And so when that happens, that those expenses will all be like DAO governed. And so like salaries will need to be approved. Expenses will need to be approved, and you can like batch those in. There's a few DAOs that are doing that relatively well so far, but essentially like that's what the process will look like. So then at that point, the relationship of the minting funds then is that rather than a treasury, like a community controlled treasury, they're sort of like funds that we can do without having to go through the bureaucratic process, whatever we really need to with. And so we're just going to basically maintain whatever flexibility we need there. So it's hard to really say, but I mean, we can say exactly what we're planning for Polygon, which is getting that game dev studio, nailing down our HQ, like basically establishing ourselves as an official company and doing like all of the core groundwork we need to become a full studio capable of building what we're trying to build. So let's see. What are your thoughts on the added sell pressure that land NFT buys in Colony would have, which basically would, like, to keep the revenue stream up, the Colony would have to be sold eventually, and how are you going to design the royalty fee structure around additional NFTs that might end up on the marketplace to counteract that additional sell pressure? So that's actually a really good point. I don't think it's something that's been discussed yet. The idea that if we build this in-game marketplace, what you have is people buying land in Colony, and so the people selling that land for the Colony would then cash out that Colony and leave the project most likely. I don't think that's 100% of the use cases. Like obviously we can imagine scenarios in which people are selling their land and hoping for more Colony for some reason. I mean, I feel like that's a rare case, but like generally it does seem like we would have a good deal of sell pressure. So there's a few ways we can counteract that, but it is something I think we need to discuss more. We don't have 100% of an answer for it. So like the options are essentially like we can create different like burns around each transaction to try to combat some of that, or we can introduce, we can introduce like other staking mechanisms and voluntary, like single-sided staking. I think will help to lock up a lot of Colony and make it so that those sell pressure like instances aren't really as dramatic as like the recent ones have been, for example, because at that point you also have more like an economy around Colony. Right now I know it's like it feels so exacerbated because like everything is low, and then on top of that we have a token that doesn't have any direct utility at the moment, and so it's just a double whammy of like bad situation. Not in the long term, but just in how it feels in the moment, if that makes sense. So when it comes to the marketplace, I think it's going to be, there's like a lot more scale to what the project will be at that point. More Colony in circulation, more burns in action. sort of countering that, and then there'll be more buy pressure for people wanting to come in to play the game. So it's kind of something we'll have to take play by ear, I think. But generally, there's like different categories of responses we can have, whether they're burns or locks or things like that. But if you guys have ideas, feel free to share them. Let's see. When do we anticipate a playable game beyond missions? Are there plans to share with the community how salaries are distributed, where those come from, how much is remaining, something like a balance sheet, monthly expenses, income, maybe breakdown by chain? So at the moment, sorry about that train, guys. There's a couple of questions in there, so I'll take them one at a time. And then obviously, Eugene, feel free to just interrupt if you feel like I'm skipping over anything. But yeah. Basically, so for a playable game, I mean, missions are the first thing. Like missions are always going to be essentially the function, I think, of gameplay. But how those missions are implemented can always sort of evolve. And so Eugene can speak more to like the immediate direction for missions as far as playability goes. But I know we're working on things that have sort of direct inputs, like for example, like a decoding mission, and what would end up happening is you've actually got to decode something or at least follow certain patterns. And so that's like how you can kind of conceptualize like generally the first actual missions. And then that'll evolve with like the more in-game features we have, like for example, the space exchange and the in-game marketplace and the different, like once we introduce resources and crafting, you'll have like sort of different quote unquote locations in game where you can perform these things, and that creates a sort of less linear gameplay experience. And so, eventually when we get playable characters, which I don't know a timeline for that, because it's going to depend on the game dev. Like we basically like estimating timelines when it comes to like any resemblance of like a first or third person or like a playable character sort of setup is heavily dependent on sort of the size and experience of the game dev that we hire. And so it's going to be a better estimate, I think, once we're there, like once we're in that moment. But then as far as the revenue part, well, actually, let's pause there. And Eugene, if you want to talk about like what you're working on for missions or how you envision gameplay in the near future, or any estimated timelines for anything.
Sure. So on the side is when do we anticipate playable missions? That's something actually. It's a very speculative question, because some in some GameFi it's like the base missions are enough, just click buttons enough. For others, people expect some kind of 3D VR experience. So it really depends upon like what you guys planning on having and what you guys want to see. Like essentially, we probably won't be able to build like another Skyrim, right? But we'll be able to build something like engaging and interesting. So yeah, we started from the most base missions where you just like click button and you just type something and get some reward. We're making them more complex, and we're gonna be slowly moving towards a couple of more mission types, which you probably have seen at guide at MarsColony IO. So there's a mining mission that's gonna be coming. There's a hopefully once we switch to a better game engine, we'll be able to work on the robot missions. There's gonna be more the more skill and the more gameplay gonna be involved. But that's all gonna be gradual. So it really depends upon like fundraising efforts, the market, your appetite, like how community, what features community like, and also like as it looks like how utilization gonna go with the missions and also GameFi that we're launching. So yeah, I won't be able to kind of like straight up answer this question. I mean, it all depends upon what you expect by missions. Then like there was a kind of direct question about the salaries, right, and how have they been distributed? Yeah, so ideal scenario is you have a team of devs, right? That being like that there's a like some kind of DAO that like of you all guys, and you approve like let's say like the pay for the devs, let's say monthly of X amount of money, and then you guys approve, it's been distributed, and it goes like a salaries. Right now the situation is not happening, so simply we basically keep treasury as is. We just keep treasury mostly for rewards split. So all the pays coming from the creators DAO, which was like essentially proceeds from NFT sales. So the runway and like how much we're spending, Well, like personally, as I remember, the latest payroll was around like, latest payroll was around like 50K, right? But we're also using external teams. For example, I'm not sure if we shared this, but that was the team that built decks for us, right? So that was like 25K we paid for that. Yeah, so basically there's a team payroll plus some other expenses coming. So like when we will kind of like right now tell you exactly what is like how much goes. And yeah, in terms of breakdown by chains, by teams, can't tell right now because I don't have numbers in front of me. But once we have a chain, we'll be able to essentially have a chain-related team that, in an ideal scenario, have like a chain-related team where which been financed partially from treasury and yeah, and partially from the like proceeds. So it will be like a little mixed, and essentially that team will be the payroll for the team will be approved by the DAO, which formed by that chain. For example, Polygon team essentially gonna be like being able to approve the pay of the devs in Polygon. Yeah, that's a couple of things. Hopefully I was able to answer some of them. If there's any other questions, just let us know. Yeah, and when you get Will on Mars, maybe soon actually. Maybe gonna do mega structure like Willa's mentions and stuff like that. Yeah, that's my juice. Anything else to add?
No, I mean that was pretty good. So yeah, like mega structures are going to bring those villas. I don't actually know the current designs for like the first mega structures. I know we've got like the bridge for the gigastructure and a few other sort of like concepts in the works. But Wooly's been designing a lot of things for us recently, so we'll get some more like basically specifics on those designs in the like coming weeks. But the only thing I would add is where's the question? Yeah, like basically for when it comes to mapping out expenses, I think the first step there is getting a DAO structure in place. Like we need to figure out, which we've been in discussions with like both community, like you guys have been offering some good ideas, and then we've also been in like internal discussion trying to figure out the best orientation for a community DAO. There are a few examples in the space that do like one thing really well. For example, like they're either really efficient investing proposal like evaluators or really efficient, what would you call that? Like aggregation DAOs and gaming DAOs. But as far as like politics governance, it's a little more complicated because you have like such a human element to it. So if you guys have concerns or suggestions, definitely feel free to make those. Mello says, any news on sending multiple avatars and when actual missions come out? I'd ask this live if I were driving to the Fiat mine. Yeah, I feel that. Well, drive safely, Mello. So yeah, let's take this second to clarify on sort of gameplay. There was debate within the core team as to whether or not the send multiple avatars function was going to be like helpful to our in-game processes. I'm convinced that it is. I think that within limited reason we can implement something like that. And Eugene, I mean, you gotta we like it's going to be something that like product team has to spec out as far as timelines, and it'll be up to them. But overall, what we do want to make sure is that we're not just creating another passive sort of funnel. So what we can't do is like send all avatars. And now I know you're saying send multiple, but just to clarify for anybody thinking about it, like we can't do just a one click to claim rewards, because at that point, I mean, literally all you're doing is clicking a button and getting rewards in exchange. It's not really a game at that point, because the only way you can do send multiple avatars at all is if it's passive, right? Like you can't, if we have the current beta mission out now, where you don't actually have to do anything to win, then you can do the batch send, right? And so like that actually works because you're not doing anything. But if we add like something you have to keep up with, some puzzle you have to solve, or some skill-based typing thing, or even like answers to questions, like you can't batch send those because you have to participate in them. So that's where the divide lies, right? And so what we can do is like retain the game functions that we have now, even as we build further. So with more complex playable missions, with more diverse rewards and things like that, I mean, we can keep these mini games like one or two that are passive and introduce like a batch send. But you'll just have to like keep in mind that what that means is it only works for missions that aren't actually playable. They're just passive. And as a result, it wouldn't make sense to give like the full spectrum of rewards to such missions. And so we would do probably like XP and like a limited resource maybe gathering. But maybe Eugene can if you have anything to add on
Yeah,
that.
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, just to recap on the mission that I know, like there's a bunch of critics, and I would say I love them. But what we were able to do with the missions, it was kind of like a proof of concept of how we can build something like and test how we can build public-private land sharing, and test the whole concept of, or of how people interact with that, how many avatars on average people have, like whether they want to combine them, batch process those missions, or whether they just want to like just to sell them to marketplace to new players. And so those kind of things we're trying to learn right now and improve. And that was like the first version, very raw version of missions. And thanks for bearing with us to kind of test this like a raw beta, but it was, I would say it was a kind of still success, because we were able to test and people are playing. We'll be able to share with you numbers. Actually, we kind of have everything in Xpanel, how many daily active players we have. But the next stages will be able, with next iterations, we'll be able to improve. First of all, this mission, so make it more interactive, allow to, for example, solve puzzles, make it like kind of not just like boring click through it. And then we're also going to be working into adding the real like more advanced missions where you're actually playing with some kind of gameplay added. So that's something that we will be going to be working on shortly. But first thing first, these ones we want to polish, improve, add proper rewards so that it will be at least exciting to play them. So, for example, we're going to add the NFT rewards for both users who play them, take part in them, and also to the landowners on whose lands they've been played. So, and then we're going to work on further stages of improvements and like more advanced missions. Yeah, so just we definitely not going to stop on this what we just built, and we definitely also consider that quite a first version that that's definitely going to be improved.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of development right now. I just talked to Dima about those different burn mechanisms as well. That's another thing we should mention is basically a few short, I mean, they're not going to be like massive, obviously, burns, but the ability to have those little customization things like renaming your avatars, moving around your base station, purchasing XP, things like that. Those are essentially the first in a long line of multiple like in-game burn opportunities. And then obviously we can do the same with transaction fees and things like that. We could probably split portions off into burns and funds. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation. So Yamamo says two different questions. Why is it a good window right now to expand to a new chain, even though launching something new in this market seems like a really bad idea? And why did Juice want to delay the expansion for 2 months initially if it's such a good window of opportunity? Okay, I can actually answer these questions really well.
I can answer. So I can answer this question from the product perspective. Why there was a delay?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So the thing is like, yeah, there's been actually, so Polygon launch was essentially a part of the roadmap item, and we were supposed to go live faster and expand faster, and also be able to kind of scale the team faster. But we tried to, like, the goal for us was to build like a fully new planet on a, like basically a new engine and stuff like that. So we worked with the Open Maps team, and it took that team a while to kind of like work on that on the map and build like the whole globe, which was kind of cool. But on the product side, there was a bit delayed because again, it was not like kind of like outside of our control. So that's on the product side, right? So and kind of like the fact that we planned to launch on these dates when the market went down. It's something that yeah, it's kind of like the like not the consequence, but something not to be planned or expected. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, just yeah.
Yeah, that's actually it's funny. That's the inverted version of. So this, I think this question was asking why I wanted to wait for the Polygon launch, like even longer than we are now. But I'm glad you brought that up because it is true that like this was actually supposed to happen earlier, and we just didn't. Basically, we weren't in the right place for that to happen. And then when we talked to Polygon, they set dates for us essentially to try to maximize engagement with their audience this month. And so that's kind of where the timeline where we're at now came from. But then also, the only reason that I wanted to delay is not because of the logistics of the launch itself. For example, like I'm pretty confident in how the launch will go. Although at the end of the day, even if it doesn't go well, like nothing changes. So that's one good thing to know is like I keep saying this because I want everybody to understand like our devs are still our devs doing what they're normally doing. The Polygon launch is primarily a biz dev effort. I mean, we've had some artists work on it, but not really a dev lift. There is like an hour required to actually like ship the launch during mint, but that's, I mean, like not consequential. You know, we'll be spending that hour in an AMA with you guys. So it's like, that's just how it goes. But the reason I did want to push it further is just because I have like big goals for the sort of narrative side of these launches. I really wanted to make like an alternate reality game out of it, like create a bunch of promotional materials and take on a certain sort of lore-based like tone, and you guys saw like portions of it in the Twitter, but like I wanted like time to build a really cool campaign around it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really hurt us in any other way. Like it was just an aspirational thing that I was pushing for, because what that would have helped do is lessen some of the panic we saw in the recent days about people like not quite realizing what was happening, and like thinking that there were bigger consequences than there are, which is totally fine. Like it's normal. This is just a process of communication. But because it was like the timeline is close, there's less time to gradually ease the community into accepting it, and so that's where I pushed back. And it's not because of a development timeline, because of a market timeline. It's literally just because I knew people were going to freak out for no reason, and I wanted time to be able to create a softer landing pad for everybody. But I mean, you guys are adults; you can handle it. You know, we talked about it, and I think everybody kind of gets it now. So. Let's see. Any idea? There's a lot of hellos and coffee comments, and I appreciate you all. So hello, and I also need to make coffee. And yeah, thanks for being here, Tris. So Mbot says, any idea on when we'll get multi-abbey quest? Oh yeah, so that was just answered, but like, so to recap, it's a feature that just depends on the next sort of iteration of missions, because we need a passive mission to be able to batch send abbeys. So like if we do it now, basically we redirect any of our efforts for building the second mission to building this feature, and that just delays the second mission. So what we'd rather do is get the second mission out and then add on to the passive mission the ability to like batch send. But that's the one thing I have yet to do, which I need to do, is update roadmap.marscolony.io with like more specific features that we're building right now. So I'm going to be doing that throughout the next couple of days, like today and tomorrow. So you can keep your eyes there to see sort of like what exactly is being built, and then maybe we can make some comments with some general timelines. Let's see. Eddie says, when will we know what each of the avatar XP levels do later in the game? Good question. So there's currently in the weekly update, there's some sneak peeks of like drafts of designs for the skill UI, and leveling can be used to like upgrade those skill points basically. Also, you can level up to do more missions in the future, and then we can implement further like based on that. Like for example, like one implementation of an avatar level, for example, is when there's crafting in game, certain tiers of crafting are accessible only to certain levels of avatars, for example, or like certain blueprints for different items. And so a lot of avatar level utility is going to depend on other in-game sort of context, this is why like the beginning of game dev is so hard to see from the outside, and why like missions also was so kind of jarring for some people. I think we've talked about it before, but essentially what you guys are watching or being a part of is like an indie game dev studio building a game from the ground up from day one. And even that isn't quite accurate, because from day one, we didn't start building the game. We started fleshing out like obviously there were a couple of months of like tokenomic work and like figuring out the land NFT mint the first time. So having to build that whole framework in the first place and then getting through avatars. And so like the majority of the project so far hasn't even been game development yet. But what you're going to start seeing now is game development is basically creating code frameworks, like a code base that enables different like tiers of features. And you have to have sort of interaction between those features, and without that, you don't really have much of what looks like a game until you tie those pieces together. So like we launched avatars, for example. They didn't have any utility, and it just seemed like a picture on the internet, basically. As we build out the game features, and those are your ticket to play, the utility of the avatar increases with the game. It's the same thing with leveling. It's like it depends on what features we have in game, and so when crafting is introduced, that's one way. When robots are introduced, like that's another way. Like different repairs or items or upgrades or something are accessible by different levels. And it's the same. It's going to be the same thing with buildings and megastructures and stuff on land plots. We can implement like a guild leveling system in the future. Like so, there's a lot of structural work to be done, but that will basically create a more sort of complex interaction between all of these use cases. So it's kind of a around the block kind of answer, but that's just kind of how it works for right now. But I hope that kind of clarifies a little bit. Let's see, trying to think of other things that people would like addressed, Servicius says. The decks, you're waiting on that other team still, right? So Eugene can answer this in more detail, but basically, no, we were waiting on them to audit it, and they took like 2 months to audit basically the decks. But what we're waiting on now essentially is implementing the revamped like LP UI that Karina designed, and then actually just publishing. Like it's basically like link the two front end UIs for Dex and LP, and then port those into like the back end, the app itself, and the dashboard and the space exchange. So it's a matter of like connecting a couple of parts basically. But it's not exactly like the highest priority on our dev list for right now, because we want to get another mission out and like the NFT rewards and stuff, so that people have a little bit more to play, and then we can release the Dex. But Eugene can probably comment on that a little more as far as Dex timeline.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I want to like let you know that it's going to be like coming like exactly at a specific date. I didn't have like an update from our CTO on this. So yeah, UI has been finalized. I just like, but I don't have timelines on when it's going to be like added into like the UI of the Space Exchange. So let us just get back to you once we have like specific date, because I don't want to like overpromise and get like a bunch of disappointments. But just rest be assured that there'll be like we just on that side we're almost finished, and you guys already saw this interface. It's working. It's on mainnet. We just haven't added the liquidity mining UI and that logic. So yeah, hopefully be able to update you with a more specific date shortly.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so it's a matter. I mean, like we could get it out, but it's not what they're currently working on. Our 3.5 devs. Let's see. Maybe address the misunderstanding that Matic Mars is different. I see a small portion of people see it as a different game and not as an extension of MarsColony development. So yeah, it's the same game. We're not gonna. There's no major feature development that will be like differentiated between them. There will be more differences in art style and available resources, and like so. For example, like I mean, you guys have probably seen the teaser by now of the new planet, which is cold and has a high, salty water concentration, and you'll learn soon about the different accessible resources that we're planning to build on that planet. So like, Harmony Mars will have a certain set of available minerals, and this planet will have a different set, and some overlap. And then for crafting, you'll need, resources for both, for example. So they're very much interdependent colonies. And the game development, as far as major features like missions and base upgrades and all of the things we're building out, are all the same. It's just the avatars will probably look different because they're different species technically, and things like that. So that's where the differentiations are, but it's the same game.
Yeah, I mean, it depends also, because we're thinking about like having multiple species, since you are flying on another planet, so for sure going to be your own species. But on that universe will be their own species, so probably going to have a mixture of them to kind of make it cool, right? So they have a polygon species, they have a harmony species, and we have also like the probably native species that are on that planet. That's something that I would like to explore as well.
Ooh, yeah, we probably shouldn't have alerted everybody to a third party, but yeah, I guess you just got some alpha, if that's what they call it these days. How do you do, fellow kids? Hi, Eugene, Servicius says. Okay, good talk, good talk. When you say rare, when it comes to loot boxes, do you mean like really rare, and will they be able to be sold unopened? So for loot boxes, rare meaning like the percentage chance that you get one from a mission is pretty low, like single digit or less. The rarity of what's inside will depend on the loot box you get. So there are at least like there's 3 types of loot boxes. There may be more variation within each type. That's still being essentially like scripted. And then what's inside will depend on the type and size of the loot box. And then so there's rarity within the rarity basically. And then as far as whether or not they'll be able to be sold before they can be opened or be sold unopened, I think that's a question for Eugene. As far as the marketplace, like, are they going to be on?
Yeah, they can be.
Yeah.
I mean, once. Yeah, so basically, they will be able to. You'll be able to sell them unopened. And also, you can keep them unopened. Some people will probably want to keep them unopened. Yeah, and just on the side of the rarity, just to add on top of that, probably going to be prioritizing utility over rarity here. So just to build something that like once you unlock it gives you more utility, rather than like you have some rare item that just like you sort of keep as a collection or something. So that's what we're first looking into. But yeah, so hopefully I'll address this question.
Yeah, that's a great point. These loot boxes eventually, like what's inside them, we're planning on making them directly usable in game. Sure. I mean, I guess you could collect them as well if you like that, but then you're just a hoarder. So, is the bulk of Martians still being developed, or can you talk a bit more about those couple of images you shared, like different classes and what they entail? Oh, for avatars. Okay, I see what you mean. So, as far as like traits and stats and the plus and minus, meaning when it came to skills, or if you're still working on all that. Okay, so for avatars, basically, yeah, like plus and minus is buff, debuff, and if it's missing, it just means neutral, right? So that just means like you have a positive effect, a negative effect, or a neutral effect on your skills or on your traits, the terminology is still fluid, but the plus and minus values are just literally that. Like, is it a strength or is it a weakness or is it neutral? But then the skills are points based, and so we can upgrade those sort of over time. But essentially, we've already written out sort of those functions, like the lore behind them, the in-game sort of usage behind the main. Like you saw, there was like dexterity and physical and intelligence or logic. Those are directly related to gameplay, but that gameplay is what's being developed. So, were you going to drop a whitelist list of addresses? As far as like the screenshot of who's eligible, I know we talked to Deb about that, but Eugene, do you have any idea of like, is it possible to release who's whitelisted or have some sort of like mechanism through which you can check whether or not you're eligible? The app I know will alert you.
Yeah, I mean, like we just adding it inside of the app. So once you log into the app, you'll see whether you're eligible. But we're gonna launch this on the 12th. So you guys want to see it before the pre-launch start?
Yeah, I think that's
my question. Oh, let me ask, because we were about to make a snapshot, as you guys know. So let me see if it's okay. Is it okay to actually publish the list of like eligible like publicly, or because I know that if you go there, you log in, it's more private. You log into the app, you see if you're eligible, but like just publishing the list of like eligible addresses, if you guys okay for everyone to see all the addresses, then we can. But I'm not sure. It really Depends upon if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely share your guys' opinions there. If you're okay with those addresses being public,
let us
obviously
know.
they're not
Yeah.
going to be tied to your name or anything, but like it will be,
Yeah.
public addresses.
Yeah, but just rest be assured, right? If you have land or you have avatar, you're already automatically like eligible, right? So it's on your like, as if you hold from today till let's say like May 12th, then you should be able to I mean, you are eligible basically.
There we go. So yeah, any MC avatar or NFT, excuse me.
Plus,
Cool.
just one more thing is like just one more thing I just don't want to sell here, but just saying if for any chance someone is not eligible, we still have this like form later to apply because we're gonna have like a guild pre-sale to Polygon. We'll be able to probably include someone who didn't have a chance to get in now.
Yeah, if there's any issues, let us know. We have time. That's one of the benefits of launching this in stages, is having that like ability to pivot if we need to. Which actually brings us to the next questions with Servicius. Great job on these questions. It seems like a lot of them are being asked, so it's good that they're all kind of rapid fire. Any big walls in your way with the in-game marketplace, other than
answer this
time?
question.
You answered it, you said?
I can answer this.
Oh, you
I
can
can
answer.
answer
Yeah,
this
go ahead.
question. Yeah, I mean, any big wall. Yeah, actually, in game marketplace, it's a big item. It's a really big item. We thought it's simple and small, but once we did research, it's like a separate project. So, I mean, no worries. We're not going to be working on this like 4 months like we did Dex, right? We will we'll try to speed this up. And again, like first of all, team expansion will allow us to do that. And secondly, we'll be doing it gradually. So first, we'll be able to launch the lands in-game marketplace, and soon after we'll be able to launch like those, be able to sell avatars, trade those NFT reward, like NFT crates and other items. So we'll be doing it gradually, most likely, to kind of like not have the same situation that we had with Dex, to not, to do it faster and so on. But yeah, but on the timelines, I also can't comment right now. But that's something that we also need, especially as we have NFT rewards. Like once we're gonna launch them, I mean like loot boxes.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, and there's also the separate NFT for anybody that does mint on Polygon. There's a Harmony NFT that we'll be giving as well, but that's going to be a secret until you get it. So let's see. Final question from Servicius. How many Polygon guilds are there? How many Polygon guilds there are, I don't know. How many are interested? I believe we are in talks with 12 right now. As far as how many are closed, that's a different number. I think we're getting up there. The biggest boost essentially to that effort is essentially knowing how much. So here's what happens, like with the guilds, is if we don't sell out on the Harmony whitelist, for example, those remaining plots after the period of mint is up can be opened to guilds as well, guilds that want to buy in larger volumes, for example. And so we have a few that are kind of considering waiting on seeing if there's anything left or if they have to, like, basically what scale they can buy at. And then obviously we have Polygon Studios is helping us with networking still. And so me going to permissionless will help with that as well. I'm going to be speaking with a bunch of different gaming projects over there. I'm trying my best to get Unix involved, actually. They're a tough nut to crack, but I have a couple of friends, I think, in there that can help us out there. So there's quite a few, basically, to answer that. I can't release all of the like specific names until they decide that they want to do that, because it's gonna be guild specific as to whether or not they share like what their holdings are. But looking forward to that. If you're talking about, I interpreted that question as people investing in the new land plots. If you're talking about guilds for MarsColony, like player guilds, the current structure I'm thinking as a sort of DAO baseline is to have like meta guilds where we have everybody can form their own guilds, do whatever they want, but then everybody also chooses one of a set number. We'll say 5, for example, though it'll probably be an even number. everybody chooses like a giant guild, one of like 5 or 6 categories to join in the project, and that informs sort of how they organize when it comes to like proposal discussions and things like that. That is going to be replicated across each chain as well. So we'll have like probably 5 main guilds across the project, but then you can have like colony specific guilds as well. So that structure is still being determined. There was supposed to be some more information I was going to release on how we can organize into guilds right now, but I just got sidetracked essentially with a couple of the other things I've been writing and publishing lately. But there will be more information soon. Essentially, it's really interconnected with the DAO, and so that's the main hesitation, is that if I release a structure that I guess I can say it this way: it's like we need to be flexible on how we organize the guilds, because if we decide that the DAO doesn't work in that structure and we want to change it, we want to pivot, we'll have to pivot how we do the mega guilds as well. So just some things to think about. Seems to me that a DEX with pairings would lock up Colony and bring new people to MarsColony to learn more. Does it make sense to wait on launching the DEX when it's already complete? I know submission updates are being done, but if we have a win we can get out, shouldn't we take the win? No, I mean, you're not way off. You're basically correct. The issue with DEX is like the DEX is good to get out as soon as we can. However, it is still going to be like a process as far as building pools. So like Colony in 1, and then on Polygon, Colony and Matic, like those are the easier pools to maintain. But then having additional pools to that, those take like a lot of time to gather liquidity for and like concerted efforts towards. And so I don't like the DEX isn't going to launch with like 50 pools with strong liquidity. We're going to have to sort of build that out over time if that's a focus. So there's not a huge consequence to not releasing the DEX like right away. Other than like, I mean, I know people feel it's like nice to have and it's good to see releases being made, but it's mainly, I think, just a priority thing. Let's see. Date of mint batches and how they're distributed. Yeah, so 7,000. The way the Polygon mint is going to work is 7,000 per group. So 7,000 is whitelisted for Harmony early supporters and discounted as a sort of like, thank you and reward for like being early supporters of the project. If then there's 7,000 dedicated to whitelisted for guilds and DAOs and social impact causes on Polygon. And if the Harmony whitelist doesn't sell out, we can add those balances to a different mint. However, if they do sell out, then obviously we're not going to shrink it. And then the final 7,000 is public. It's basically open to everybody, Harmony, Polygon, whoever wants to mint. But that will raise in price when that happens. Although that is flexible, just depending on how the mint actually goes. Which I've said this before, but like no matter how the Polygon mint goes, like we're still going to be doing what we're doing now. It's just that if it goes well, we speed up, and so we're excited to see what happens. But if it's fantastic, that's like great press, and if not, like we're still going to be here. So don't stress too much about how it's going to go.
I just think our CTO would like to let's do DEX first instead of NFT rewards, because we like started working on rewards. But let's try to, because like looks like everyone wants DEX. So I really appreciate guys sharing this feedback. Sorry for chiming in like that, but super useful. I mean, to hear what you guys all want first.
No, that's perfect. And that's actually a really good point. If you guys want something to be prioritized differently, like let us know. So if the DEX is more important than NFTs rewards for missions and like the next mission, then we can swap focus.
And I'm just and apologies for that. I do need cafes being closed here, so I have to run. So maybe any other questions, just like let me know via chat, and I'm gonna be just jumping off.
All right, thanks so much for joining, Eugene. I'll hang around for a few more minutes if anybody needs anything, but.
Thanks for joining, guys, and thanks for questions. Really appreciate them. Super useful.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so I can continue on here. Obviously, I think the product master general just dropped out of existence, so I don't know how much more I can give, but I'm gonna do my best to address all of these quickly. Let's see. Yep, Joim correct. Those are correct details. Thank you for helping out there. Has the team considered keeping or holding land plots to help pay for missions, LP rewards, or even salary performance bonuses? Yeah, we don't really give like many salary performance bonuses, although that would be nice. Like I think the more we can do that, I think the better it is for like team morale. And we don't really underpay, but like we do have cheap salary expenses for now, relatively speaking, in the industry. Like I know, like 50,000 a month is definitely going to drain any grant money like pretty quickly, but it's pretty low for both the industry and our team size. We currently have 14 people on payroll, and so I think we're doing relatively well on that front. But I would like to look into that. Yeah. As far as keeping or holding land plots, we do have some in the creator DAO. Not that many because we didn't want to like outbuy. We basically just used like our own. I say we. I wasn't even on the project at that point. When that first mint happened, they just bought like with their own money some mints, but not with the money generated. And so it's possible to do, but the issue is like the reason that Polygon launch helps us to scale is because like basically I can sum up our funding situation like this. We have money. We have like a sizable chunk of the and I don't have the specific numbers in front of me either. I'm not the one that manages the treasury. But basically, like general overview, we have a good chunk of the Project X investment left. The Harmony grant was used because 50K is great when you're kickstarting a project. Doesn't get you that far though, but it was definitely needed and very helpful. So we have a chunk of the Project X money. We have a big chunk of the original revenue from the land mint as well. But when salaries alone are 2 months of salary is 6 figures and more, that's a pretty big expense. And so in maintaining our project development for the next 6 months, for example, we want to make sure to be really smart with the funds that we have. So then Polygon, the reason for a Polygon launch is to not just take those 6 months, but and like make them longer, but to double the pace as well. So it's like we can speed up and exist we can greatly speed up. Like Eugene was saying, like if we're aggressive and hungry, we can greatly speed up for 12 months, or we can speed up moderately for 18 months. Like that's kind of where we're at in funding wise. And so it doesn't actually feel like there's much liquid to be able to invest in like more plots or LP rewards or anything. However, a sizable chunk of the first revenue generated by the land plots was actually put into liquidity and is still there. So that is one portion. Although I'm unclear about whether or not that's generating us rewards or if that was just like the foundational liquidity. I actually don't have any info on that, but I can check. Let's see. The second one is a sale where everyone can mint, but with a discount. Yeah. So 7K whitelist for poly communities is like basically existing DAOs on Polygon and gaming guilds and any organizations there that want to do like a bulk purchase. It's less of a whitelist mint and more of a like we're taking orders and we'll just give it to them at the day of the mint. So that's kind of how that is working. And they're getting, because it's bulk purchases, they're getting like a similar discount. I believe actually the same price as the Harmony whitelist mint, which is 210 Matic, and then the public one will open up at 410. There's a flexibility there. Like if we feel that we should adjust the public mint price, we can do so. But from what Polygon is telling us, that they're pretty happy with the setup right now. So we'll just have to play that one by ear. Let's see. Toaster says, when minting land on Matic, can we choose plots like we did on Harmony? So it should be possible. Basically the same flow. Excuse me, I'm having all sorts of issues. The same flow has been built, or was already is being used that has been built. And so you should be able to select land. The only thing that was like added, actually I wasn't even present for the first land mint, so I don't know if this is a new feature or not, but I know there has been talk about like batch minting as a way to lessen the strain on the network with fewer transactions. And so like you'll have a cart feature that will allow you to select multiple lands and mint them all at once. Let's see. Tris says, what was the alpha they just dropped by mistake? Oh, that was just that there was another species on the new Mars beyond Polygon people. So, I mean, I don't know how much I can tell you right now, but there should be another set of life forms that are not colonists on this other planet, is all I can say. What will the price be to mint Polygon Mars plots? Yeah, so just to refresh, that's 210 Matic for the whitelist, and then if you wait till the public, it'll most likely be 410. Colony the same price on Polygon as it is on Harmony? That's a good question, Drew. So basically, yes and no. Here's how that's going to work. Because there's no bridge in between, it's basically an arbitrage opportunity. So they're going to equalize over time. And so it's the same token in name and essentially in contract, though on a different chain. However, we would need to bridge it and essentially wrap it on the back end to transfer between both chains. And so that's a whole dev lift in itself. So while there is no bridge to transact freely, what you're just going to have is people going to Polygon to buy Colony if it's cheaper, or people going to Harmony to buy Colony if it's cheaper, if they're looking to trade or stash. But if you need to upgrade or use it in game, you're going to have to get it on the chain that you're upgrading on, because there's no current bridge. Once there's a bridge, those prices will equalize even more quickly, because you're going to have the ability to use either Colony from either chain on either chain. And then, as a thought experiment, when there's 10 colonies, the Colony tokens will basically be fluid throughout the entire blockchain ecosystem across chains, and you'll have a supply for each chain that's needed there, but that can be fluid. Some can be sent to another chain if there's a mass of players on Harmony, for example, because of the transaction fees, and everybody's oh man, that's another thing. When you talk about multi-chain, nobody's going to come to Harmony to mint an NFT, but if they're already playing a game they really enjoy and they find out that Harmony's the easiest place to play that game, or has certain sort of factors that make them want to be here, then they'll come to Harmony. And so that's essentially one way. And so if all of a sudden we have 50,000 players on Harmony and 10,000 on Polygon and 10,000 on the other chains, we're going to need more Colony on Harmony. And so that Colony will be bridged from other, supplies from other colonies. And so it'll all be one total supply. It's not going to change total supply cap, but it'll definitely change the concentration across colonies. But yeah, anyway, that's just a kind of a convoluted thought experiment. Is the marketplace and DEX only going to be on Harmony? No, it'll be on every chain, but it's going to be first on Harmony. Can we utilize one marketplace and one DEX on all planets to integrate the Harmony one? Yeah, that's the goal. So basically what it is, it's a process of building a bridge. And the way the blockchain bridges work is you have, at least the way that we're currently thinking about building it is you have custodians, decentralized custodians, with sort of a zero knowledge, trustless setup where you can have the validators on that chain sort of custody the wrapped assets and burn. And it's the same way that the Harmony bridge works. For example, you have custody wallets for burns of wrapped tokens, and then releases from custody wallets on the other chain. So it looks like a bridge. What it really is just a wallet that keeps tab on each chain of the different balances, and mints wrapped tokens on the other chain for every wrapped token that's burned here. So that's the end game. We've done that before. We've built a DEX before that bridged. I believe they're at 60 chains now. I don't even know that there were 60 chains in existence, but those guys are crazy. So yeah, that's integrate or die, basically. We want to absorb as much as we possibly can. What are the pros and cons of land sharing? That's a good question. So currently none, because there's no interaction there. The first interaction is going to be these NFT rewards that we're introducing soon. Avatars get them, and then there's also, for every mission played on a plot of land, you have the same percentage of getting an NFT dropped to that wallet that owns the land. And so landowners will also receive rewards for having avatars play on their plots. And that's the very beginning of like the revenue share system. In the future, what that's going to look like is like if you have land sharing on, if you have land sharing off, that's because you want to play on your own lands and earn all the rewards yourself, which is totally fine. If you have enough, you have the right amount of avatars for how much land, you have the right amount of time to play, you can turn your lands private, make sure nobody plays on them, and do all your own missions and get all your own rewards. If you have more avatars than you have land missions available, you'll play on other people's land. And if you have more land available than avatars, you'll play on other people's or time. You'll let other people play on your plots. And what that does is it allows you to share some of the colony generated up to you in return for like that portion of the avatar's rewards, and you basically make an agreement between player and playee, player and landowner. And right, so that's the overview implementation of that. It's not currently implemented because we don't have any other rewards, but we're also right now mapping out like what resources are going to look like on each planet, and what they'll be needed for. And so once we have that figured out and can start building, we'll introduce the ore as the next reward, and then add the refiner building, and then you'll be able to use those to refine your ore to get different resources. So those are like the next main stages for rewards. Is NFTs, then ore, then resources, and then at some point in all of that, we have like on the DeFi side, the marketplace and DEX coming, and then on the game side, we have more missions to play, and then on the upgrade side, like the gameplay side, we have upgrades and crafting, which are other features that will have to be built out. So it's like there's all these, like I said, there's all these threads that we tie together to make a rope. And right now, because we're just starting, we're basically making the threads and then tying them together. So it's kind of a weird process for being live game dev, like having everybody watch essentially the very vulnerable task of trying and failing and trying again, and then fixing bugs and then releasing frameworks. So like it's kind of fun, actually. It's a little stressful, but kind of fun. Maybe a pop-up rather than a list of addresses. Yeah, so the pop-up is like, that's what we're planning on, but that's going to go live on the 12th. So basically when you log in on the 12th, it'll be like, hey, you're eligible to mint land, mint it here. And then if you're not eligible, it'll be like, hey, you're not eligible, you can apply for the next whitelist here, which basically means like if you don't have any NFTs in your wallet or there was some mistake, there will be a button that leads you to a form that basically adds you to the guild whitelist. And so, yeah, there's that. But that's going to be a case by case thing as well. We're going to have to check, like, verify the NFT ownership and things like that. So, bit of a process for that one. Let's see. All addresses are public. No reason to not publish them. Give people a chance to make sure theirs is listed. Yeah, that's a fair point. I think it would be fine to just publish a snapshot, and you guys can Command F, paste your own address in, and check to see if you're eligible. A box ticked is also a good idea. I don't think that would be very hard to do. It would take a call and response, like between the back end, which I don't want to. Well, we got to ask basically the devs like what their workload feels like, because I know if they're like like chances are they're going to just roll their eyes and be like, please no more. So yeah, we'll get back to you, but either way, we'll have a solution at the very least on the day of mint, but hopefully before that. What's the difference between support received between Harmony and Polygon teams? So not a whole lot. I mean, Polygon hasn't given us a big grant or anything. Like we got a grant for essentially like stage 1 was $8,000, which is it's nothing in project world, but it's sort of like basically what they're offering is the grant is symbolic of a partnership that grants us their marketing efforts, and we can do AMAs, we can take over their Twitter, we can have them publish whatever we want them to publish during the mint, and so we get their support there. We also get all of their sort of contacts in the guild space and do all of the networking. So one thing Polygon is legendary for is biz dev. And so like that's what they're giving us. Now there is because we got the 8,000, like that qualifies us to be a part of their grant program, so we can get more in the future if that's warranted. But that's not like the main point of our partnership that we're seeking. Oh, thanks, Jandy. I completely did not realize. Sorry about that, Try. I haven't checked the AMA chat in forever. I said I would let you up, and then I promptly forgot. So, um, welcome up on stage, Try. And anybody else that wants to speak in public, go ahead and request to speak, and I'll let you up. If I don't notice you, do what Jandy did and tag me in the AMA chat. Hey, Try, how's it going? I don't know if you're speaking, but we can't hear you. It may be an input issue. It's pretty common with Discord. Now you're muted. It might be like check if you go to settings and then you go to voice and video, it'll show what your input device is, which I mean it differs based
Can
on
you
whether
hear me?
you're. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, I was pushed to talk.
Oh, got it.
I just wanted to get up on stage because I hadn't been up here for a while.
I know. I've missed you hanging out up here, man. It's been like forever since we've had just a chill AMA. These have been so crazy lately.
Well, I'm in the middle of a changing job, so I've been a little busy.
Yeah. What are you looking? I mean, if you want to talk about it, but
I'm going into cloud computing, so I'm
Interesting.
shifting from standard server-based homegrown systems to moving to the cloud.
Nice. Yeah. Well, then we need to keep in touch because Mars is definitely gonna have to upgrade our cloud. Like right now we're just using Cloudflare because it works for where we're at. But as the game obviously gets more intensive and we have more server-side interaction, we're gonna need some better cloud solutions. So it's good to know.
Yeah, I'm moving towards Azure and
Nice.
and AWS.
Yeah. Solid industry giants.
Yep.
They are that way for a reason. Cool.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
So yeah,
Were
just
you
jumping
hanging
on.
out?
Oh, I did have a question. I don't think you ever answered it.
Oh, sorry about that.
I think I reposted it like 10 times.
Oh.
Has the team considered keeping holding land plots to help pay for missions, LP rewards, or even salary performance bonuses?
Oh yeah, no, I did touch on that, but I mean, because
I
it was
must have
me, I
missed
was
it.
a little. It's all right. It was a bit of a ramble anyway. But basically, like
What?
we we have and we have a little bit. Like I said, like so at the initial mint, the core team used their own money to like mint lands because they want to have land in the project. But then the bulk of the revenue, or a sizable chunk of the revenue from that sale, was put into liquidity mining and is still there. I actually don't know whether or not that's like actually earning us yield or not, or just serving as sort of foundational liquidity. I have to double check on that. But so like we have a portion in liquidity that actually ended up being like a financial loss if we were to pull that out. And we don't ever plan on pulling that out because it's we want to make sure there's always liquidity available, especially if like people need to pull out like in like any sort of like it's obviously not something we're going for, but like you hear about those projects that have some sort of like critical error and like people can't remove funds and because they basically rug their projects, and it's like we want to make sure that like we are the exit liquidity for you guys if anything were to ever go wrong. So we basically got like a bunch locked in LP. But then as far as like investing purposes with it, like trying to generate funds by holding lands and stuff, it's a really good idea, but we don't have the liquid funds for it because like, well, we do, but it would be kind of dangerous. It would be a dangerous play, and we don't necessarily want to risk it quite yet. That is something we're thinking about long term, but where we're at right now is we've got like a chunk of the Project X investment left, and then we've got a big chunk of the revenue from the initial land sale left. Both of those are basically going to allow us, both of those combined will allow us to continue developing for probably 6 months at our current pace with no additional funding. And so now there's moves we can, and we can also put more personal funding into the project. Like worst comes to worst, we can just put more of our own like money as a core team like pooled into the project. But because we've generated all of this, so like we don't want it. That's obviously a last resort. Like those are like savings accounts and stuff. And so the goal here is to responsibly sort of use that money to get us as far as we possibly can. And while we don't have, it's like I don't know, kind of asking a college student to start like a moderate risk portfolio. It's probably a good idea, but he doesn't really feel comfortable with it because he's still wondering whether or not he's gonna like make rent like 6 months down the line, and so he's trying to be like saving. That is a bad example because like we're not struggling, but like we do want to be very careful with how we manage the current funds that we have, which is why like a Polygon mint that goes well would be helpful because it multiplies where we're at, and we can make moves like that. We could like really expand the team and start to like do some of that sort of big brain money moves. But right now it just feels a little too dangerous. Not in the sense that like we're risking project safety necessarily, but like we don't want to go and use what we're going to be living off of for the next like 6 months basically. So yeah, it's long story short, it's an option we're considering, but we want to wait until we have a little bit more available and like liquid capital, if that makes sense.
Yep. LDQ has his hand raised.
Oh, good call.
I didn't
Thank
want
you.
to cut you off.
I appreciate you though. Yeah. So LDQ, how's it going?
Good, man. How about you? Sorry about the noise. I'm in my break, and this place is like very loud music. Quick
All
question.
good.
I wasn't a original or a beginner supporter of the project, but I little by little DCA into the plots, and I own 10 now and 2
Wow.
cars.
Nice.
But I love the project. I'm a big believer. Little by little, I love seeing the updates and you guys building, and I know building takes time. So, long story short, how, in my case, somebody like me, again, not a beginner from the get-go, but for the Polygon mint, how is that gonna? How can I benefit? How can I get on the whitelist, or I won't be able to get on the whitelist in that case.
Oh no, you will. So yeah, basically, first of all, thank you for the encouragement. I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate those words. The whitelist is basically like anybody who currently owns a MarsColony NFT land or avatars. The wallet address that contains those is an OX address, which is like an Ethereum denominated wallet address. And you can use that same address on Polygon. All you have to do is add the Polygon network to your MetaMask. And so if you hold any land or avatars, you're already on the whitelist. I think we took a snapshot a couple days ago, but then we're going to take it actually today again because there hasn't been like a massive jump, just a few more people. And so we want to give everybody a shot. So we're taking the snapshot today. So like as of today, if you have an avatar or any land in your MetaMask, all you have to do is add the Polygon network to your MetaMask. And the tutorial for that is linked in the explanation of the whitelist on the forum. But also if you just search how to add Polygon to MetaMask, there's like a easy tutorial on the Polygon website. So yeah, you're already on the whitelist, man. And basically when you mint, like you'll generate Colony once the public mint starts. And so just like land on Mars, it'll generate differently. It's a different like mechanism, but you'll still generate Colony, and then you'll have a portion of essentially control a portion of the land on the new blockchain, which is always just going to be desirable with more players. So.
And again, the purchase of the plots there, it's with Colony or with Polygon?
So it's with the Polygon native token, which is called Matic. It's about it's hovering around $1 per Matic right now. So yeah, it's a different token. But then the avatars that sell on that chain will be minted with Colony.
All right, sweet. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. I see. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and questions. So okay, somebody tagged me down in the AMA chat, so I want to address that real quick. Let's see. For avatars, are they able to do missions cross-chain? Yes, they are. Avatar, I mean, not immediately because there's no avatars on Polygon for like a month or two after the launch because we have to generate the colony on that chain, and then we have to create the bridge. But then once we have those two things in place, then yeah, absolutely, the whole point of like the cross-chain colony will be being able to do like cross-chain missions and get different kinds of rewards and things like that. And then the Dreamer asks, like, you mentioned 14 people on payroll. Can you list how the team is organized? Yeah, that's actually, so I know it's a little convoluted. Like, it can be tricky to find all this information, but that colony at a glance document includes a section that says like team or something, and it lists sort of the team members' roles. And so we have three. Like we have our CTO and then like 3 devs, 2 full-time and then a part-time or a contractor. I actually don't know if she's listed on that. And then we have 2 biz dev and an advisor in biz dev. We have me on marketing, which is the team I'm going to grow once we have a Polygon budget. That's kind of been because you need to market like a well-rounded product, and so like it would just not be great to do much marketing at the moment anyway. I don't think it would be as effective. But once we are in a better place, I'll start building out my team. And then we've got 2 product managers. One is Eugene as the chief of product, and then one is Lyagushka as like the head of like the product lead, basically like the product manager. So yeah, like chief tech and 3 devs under him, and then we contract out a lot of devs and audit firms. So like mainly for auditing, but then also for like with the DEX, one of the things we asked them to do was like refactor our cross pool swaps, which is not going to be that important at the beginning, but it's really crucial to have built in because so we can add more liquidity pools and like not suffer from low liquidity, basically. For other pools like I don't know, Colony and Bitcoin, for example. So yeah, so we've got it's all described at that post, but I did my best to do a little bit of a rambling explanation of them.
So I did have some follow-up questions, I guess.
Oh yeah, go for it, Trey.
So my question about the balance sheets, monthly, yada yada yada, income, expenses. I know it can be difficult to, and it's not customary for crypto projects to kind of list that stuff out. But I think it would help settle the nerves of investors if they saw that there was some accounting that was going on that was kind of public to the community as a whole, and seeing it in a static location on the people.MarsColony.io. Just seeing it there, I think, would help with concerns that have been raised more recently than prior. But I just kind of wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, you make a good point. I want to address that actually, because like the team funding is basically pretty fluid right now, and so we don't have. I mean, we have an accounting like process for how the Creator DAO manages those funds, and then the accounting process for like the grant funds we've got are validated by like Harmony team, basically. So that's where those accountings go. As far as like getting a list of like all salaries out and getting like regular expenses and trying to make a public sort of documentation of that, there's two stages to that we're working on. So the first one, which is not as satisfying because it's a bit delayed, is like once the DAO is implemented, that's a non-negotiable, right? Because like the DAO can't approve funds that it doesn't know about, but then that's also the transition to the treasury funding, right? Because that's the treasury is what's the community governed sort of source of funding, whereas the creators DAO is the like core team board basically deciding on everything, and so it's not something that like I think any of us really has the bandwidth at the moment to just like publish records of, but also not something we're opposed to. Something I'm in talks with Father about right now is the process of incorporating as a proper company. And so post Polygon launch, what we're doing is we're setting up headquarters in Vietnam and registering as an actual company. And at that point, we can have, we'll obviously need like legal and compliance, and we'll have sort of HR and like things that can help us with these processes, which will be able to like much more, like it can be a much more public process without detracting from all of our attention right now, because it's just not like high on the priorities list for me as like something to do. But also, I think the second part of that is currently a lot of those expenses are like, well, not a lot of those expenses. Some of those expenses from Creators DAO have gone to like relocating team members, trying to get them out of Ukraine and Russia, and like that is just a personal like use case, and that is kind of why the Creators DAO retains or remains as like discretionary funding. Is we do want to maintain a sort of distance from the community with those funds, not completely, like we don't want to hide anything necessarily. And so I do really like the idea of accounting, but it just does need to be understood that like those aren't funds that will be used for voting or like voting on what they're spent on, just because the flexibility of and it's not all, it's just the funds generated from the mint. It's not from like all funds in the project, obviously. But because what that allows us to do is when we have the treasury as the primary mode of project funding, for example, and like the DAO is deciding who to pay and who to hire and who, like what kinds of, do we need more devs, do we need more marketing, like where that money goes, then the core team has a sort of source of funding to build out the things that we like believe in passionately. It's sort of a little bit of like a we become our like a second DAO essentially, and we don't get to make decisions for the project overall, but we do get to have like let's say, for example, let's say the priority for the team or for the community is to build out VR, for example, like in the future. Let's say the DAO's implemented and the community really wants VR. So they're going to use treasury funds to hire a studio that can sort of handle that transition from 2D or 3D to VR. Then what the core team would do is we would rely on the Creators DAO funding to then fund ourselves and any other hires while we build like additional game mechanics or a separate like DeFi function. It's hard to be specific because it depends on what the project looks like at that time, but it's essentially like another funding arm that allows us to be somewhat autonomous. But yeah, so all of that was just yeah.
So the only reason why I say this is because I in talking to some of the other, I'll label them as investors, but even players are investors if you really think about it.
Yeah.
So it just the magnitude at which people invest is varies from person to person, and I'm sure there's far more people vested than myself that just would like to know, okay, here's what the total funds are currently as they are. There's an income level coming in from the tokenomics being generated within the Harmony protocol. X number of colony is going to the treasury per month. There's a pocket pool of money that's sitting. It just kind of gives everybody an understanding of where things are financially within the project itself overall, considering all sources of information, and as things come in, and it helps settle the nerves as to whether or not something is destined to go away or not go away, and just kind of see it as a corporation. If that makes any sense.
No, that does make plenty of sense. And actually, so I published the treasury address last night or this morning, only to realize that Colony doesn't actually show up on the Explorer right now,
which is a problem.
Is definitely a problem. So I've got Dima looking into it, and essentially what it is the Harmony Explorer team. We have like a support connection with them, a support liaison, and they were having some issues getting the contracts to line up, and so I'm basically pushing him to reignite that conversation, because I remember we talked about it a little while ago, I feel like, and so I'm basically pushing to see what the progress is we can make on that front. But
Like,
yeah,
I can't even see my NFT lands or avatars
yeah, it's
on
annoying.
the Harmony
Like,
Explorer.
it's like yeah, you only know you have anything if you log into NFT Key and you see the correlated image. So
Correct.
yeah, that's definitely something we want to fix. Because also, like, anybody using a ledger, it's like, goodness, like, I feel bad. But yeah, so we definitely want to get that fixed. And once that is, the treasury address obviously will be visible. You guys can see like what's going in every day, every moment, if there's anything taken out, you'll know. And so, which I have described, we took like a little bit to temporarily, which we can actually replenish for a designer contractor that exceeded budget. But that was just a small lump that wasn't even outpacing the days generation. And then the only other thing that currently comes from there is the mediator and artist rewards, like people that like contribute music or like to official teasers, or the mediators who are helping in the community. So those are the only things that the treasury is currently used for. I saw somebody ask about one in the treasury. There's no one in the treasury. There's one in liquidity provision. And then for the project exit investment, we were given one that was immediately converted to USDC, which I think now is definitely a good play. And that's what we're using essentially to cover our like USDC salaries and stuff. But yeah, so good points. I think all of those will start to be cleared up once we can get the treasury live and active on like Colony visible on the Explorer. Because I mean, until then, technically, like, we could tell you whatever we want about the treasury, and you won't have a way to verify it, and that's not helpful. Like, because one, if we lied, then you would just find out when Colony is visible, and two, if we didn't, then like you have no way to verify. And so I think the biggest priority is getting Colony visible in the Explorer. Same thing with the NFTs. And that way you guys can independently fact check sort of where the treasury's at and what's happening with it. And then the other funding, yeah, we can lay out, especially as we incorporate, like, that'll be much easier to like publish balance sheets and stuff.
Yeah, just something quarterly. Nothing that has to be too accurate to the date, or
Right.
just something that people can go to and reference and say, okay, if they want to go deeper, they can go deeper into it and go look in the ledgers and the wallet addresses to validate that the information being published is in fact what it is.
Yeah.
Just kind of making it available as a company would any public company.
Right. Yeah, I think that's peace of mind. Like, you know for sure that you're not on like a sinking ship as far as money is concerned. So yeah, that's definitely a good point. Do you have any other questions or comments? I'm also going to look at AMA chat, but then we should probably try to wrap it up.
No, I need to get ready to run. I think my wife wants to go to lunch. So
all right. Hey, we'll have fun with that.
Bolt anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to give everybody one quick update. Pixie Man has been doing some community ideation, and he really wants us all to watch a movie. And I actually kind of like that idea. So he's added a channel called Movie-Chat down at the bottom in the Hangout category. And his idea is, maybe every Friday or every other Friday or something, anybody that wants to can, like, co-stream a movie or a documentary or something. We can all hang out and chat. So I think that'd be something fun to start doing. So if you have any interest in that, head over to the Hangout category, go down to Movie Chat, and start suggesting maybe some movies we could stream. And with that, everybody, thanks for joining. I will see you guys around the Discord. And for the next AMA, which takes place 1 hour before the Whitelist Mint goes live, so that is May 12th at 9 a.m. Eastern, we'll be in an AMA and then round it out with the kickoff of the Polygon Mint. So thanks so much for joining us, guys. I appreciate all of you, and forward.
Thank you. Keep kicking ass, man. Thank you.
Thank you.